go. Let's go. Let's go. All right, y'all. I am back in the place to be. This is your boy Wize Grazette, and I'm the icn.dj. Welcome to my live. I'm gonna let the live kind of cook up a little bit, but just give you all some info. Again, I'm the icn.dj, Wize Grazette. You all can follow me at the Real Wise on Instagram and Twitter/X, however you want to call it, at the Real Wise, WIZE. So today I come on the live 3 times a week, and Mondays we talk about behind the mic. Wednesdays we talk about Let's Talk Podcast, which is what today is, and then on Fridays we do the podcast rundown. So I'm live 3 times a week. If you all want to be tapped in on what's going on, make sure to tap in. I'm literally going to be on here for about 9 minutes today because I have a big meeting today. But what I do want to tell you all is this: video podcast is it. Start there. Video podcast is it. And the data is saying so. Now, I've said that countless times already in the past, but the data really is saying that video is where it's at. Right now, over 1 billion hours of content is being streamed daily, not weekly, not monthly, but literally daily on TV. And when we think about, again, podcasts and building the podcast, building out your podcast, forget the podcast industry, but building out your podcast specifically, we're thinking about the fact that how am I getting my podcast in front of as many people as possible? And you are doing that by being in places that they are. And television, which has been a staple in people's lives since like the 60s, YouTube is available on there, And now, yes, yes, Apple Podcasts. Actually, no, you can't listen to Apple Podcasts. But I think like TuneIn has a app for the TV. I have an Apple TV, so TuneIn has an app. There's like the Roku, Amazon Prime. Amazon has their own the Fire Stick. You can definitely listen to podcasts on there as well too, if that podcast is available on Amazon Music. But at the same time, again, just thinking about this, YouTube is king. We've spoken about that on a live plenty of times already, but YouTube is absolute king. So just here again, I always am pulling data from podnews.net. It's where I pull a lot of my data from. If you all want to be tapped in as to what's happening in the podcast industry, I absolutely recommend for you to go to podnews.net. It's put together. It's actually based in Australia. So, they have their own like viewpoint, as you can imagine, on the podcast space. But um really and truly, Australia also has a very big and strong podcast audience. So, when we're talking about your podcast growth, we're not just talking about like in the country that you live in. Like I live in the States right now. We're not just talking about the country that you're living in. We're talking about the country that you're living in and the country there where they are also listening to podcasts. So we're talking about, ooh, sorry, I almost coughed right there. Talking about Canada. We're talking about the UK. We're talking about Australia. We're talking about Japan and Korea. South Korea, oh, they listen. They absolutely listen. We have some folks in the comments right now. Hey, Retro. Hey, Denora Elizabeth Calderon. Hello to you as well, too. So yeah, the huge opportunity for podcasts to be on YouTube. So again, like if this is the space that you want your podcast to be at, if you want to really truly grow, you need to follow the data. And the data says create a video podcast or have that podcast actually live on some video platform like Spotify. So let's talk about that. Spotify this year also has truly gotten a huge, they got their stuff together. Let's just say that. Technically wise, they've gotten their stuff together. So I recently launched my podcast Behind the Mic about a month ago now. Yeah, November 11th was when my podcast actually started. And it's been an amazing journey so far. When I launched my podcast way back in 2012, like it was complicated. It was a much different space, but now there are so many opportunities for you to actually be involved in podcasting, whether it's just from the audio side or on the video side. So I added my podcast to Spotify recently. We have our trailer up there, and I was able to take the trailer itself and then put the video part of it on Spotify. Now that's like brand new, for those who haven't tried it before. It's very, very new. You don't have to go to a special part of Spotify to look for it or anything like that. You just type in the podcast that you want to go to. So in this case, for me, it would be Behind the Mic Podcast, powered by Revolt Podcast Network. You will go in there, type that in, you will see the episode, and you click on it. And on the right hand side, well, I guess if you're on web, the right hand side, the video displays. If you're on mobile, it probably jumps right into it. The comments are going interestingly crazy. But let me just set a poll real quick. I love to do this poll because it just allows me to see how tapped in you all are. So, super simple poll. Are you subscribed? Yes or no? If you're subscribed, very simple. Just click yes. If you're not subscribed, take a moment here, get subscribed, and then come back and click yes. So if y'all notice, there was no like real option for anyone to choose no. Yeah, just click yes. Let's go from there. Cool. So first name, last name says, do you know what a widow's peak is? Y'all are hilarious today. No problem. Okay, so that is that. So I also want to shout out Amanda McLaughlin on LinkedIn. She actually had a very interesting point, honestly, to highlight about YouTube and just like Spotify as well too. So it says, first thing to know about Spotify's pivot to video. It isn't about podcasts, it's about YouTube. Spotify is building a tool for YouTubers to cross post their podcasts and their videos. That's what their acquisition of Anchor was all about, if you all have noticed that. That's the reason why they're rolling out comments. That's the reason why things are becoming much more social on the Spotify platform. So they are now trying to align themselves as like that true competitor for YouTube. So incredible opportunity again for podcasters to again build their audience in the space where people are all already are. Like right now, we are actually all here on YouTube. So again, if you have a podcast, definitely make sure that you have your podcast on YouTube and to try it on Spotify as well too. So again, this is Let's Talk Podcast. Does anyone have any podcast specific questions? I got about 2 more minutes on here before I pop out to my next meeting. This is crazy. So retro, I know you are a Gen Alpha because that word skibbity. I have a 12-year-old. I'm hip to y'all craziness. I'm hip to y'all craziness. Cool. So outside of that, that's all I really wanted to touch on today. Of course, like always, all of my podcast lives are available on YouTube afterwards. So you can go back and listen to get more information. And of course, you can leave comments, and I answer all of my comments. So if you have any comments about, again, your podcast being on YouTube or your podcast being on Spotify, make sure to drop them in the comments. I'll be there. Anyway, besides all that, thank you all for tapping in today. I am Wize Grazette, most known or best known internationally as Wizzy and Wise. You all can follow me on social media at the real Wise, WIZE, and I'll catch you all on the next live.